All right. Hello, everybody. Nick Morganson here, co host of Empty the Bench here on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Getting tired of talking about this topic, but we're going to talk about it again as more news has kind of arisen from this topic. And here it is again. Breaking per Shams Charania, Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers ownership about his knee injury. And now we've already gotten the news that he's officially going to be out for the rest of the season. But we're now finding out, excuse me, that Joel Embiid had to go directly to 76ers ownership on the state of his knee. And apparently they've been going back and forth on this for the past couple of weeks to get this situation figured out. This is like a clown show where a bunch of clowns are just coming out of the clown car one after another. And it just, like, every time a trickle of news comes out from this, it just gets way worse, if you ask me. I mean, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing here? Like, the 76ers season is a mess. And now we're just getting more trickling and trickling out of news that now the ownership and Joel Embiid are on the same page, that they are trying to find a new health regimen to get him back on the court. And apparently the 76ers were trying to get a health regimen to get him back on the court this year, which, in my opinion, that would have been awful. If the guy can't stay on his feet, between all the shots and everything, the cortisone shots and everything he's had to do to keep his body afloat and to play, has just not worked. It's not worked. And Anthony Ballister and myself have talked about it on Empty the Bench, the flagship show on the network. I've said this many times, and there was a clip that came out from our Twitter account, or all our social media accounts at ETB Sports for that individual show, where I said, this is a nightmare, and they got to cut their ties at this point and move on. There's no way this situation gets better. No one thinks this situation is going to get better. Every time we hear more news, it gets worse. And by the way, everyone who's watching, I appreciate it. Please drop your comments on the Joel Embiid situation if you would like to comment on Joel Embiid and his situation, now that we're finding out that Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers ownership to talk about his knee injury. And supposedly Joel Embiid was the one that said, I'm shutting it down for the year. Well, finally, Joel Embiid said something smart. He said something that finally actually makes sense to the NBA and the ownership. Even though the ownership was the one that said, nah, don't shut it down. We'll just put you on a health regimen and we'll get you back on the court, even if you're not 100%. I mean, seriously, Josh Harris? The owner of the 76ers, if you were wondering, by the way. But this doesn't get better. It gets worse. This injury is a horrible injury to play on. It is. And just think about it. He's a tall guy. And I'm looking up his knee injury specifically because I want to see what the actual knee injury is. But it's just one of those things that's been lingering all season long. And I also laugh, because this team had aspirations to go really far into the playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, they're somewhere in the realm of 20-38. And they're going absolutely nowhere. And they're barely winning their game right now as we speak. They're playing on ABC right now. And Philly's winning 122-119 with about 50 seconds to go in the game. But they had a much larger lead in tonight's game, and they've basically blown that off. But I don't know, man. The 76ers are in trouble. In trouble. Especially if Embiid is out the rest of the day. Not that he was doing anything. Anyway. And also, if you want to throw in another tantrum into this matter, look at Paul George and all the drama that he's caused as well with his stupid podcast, which he finally says he's going to put on hold because he says he wants to focus on winning a championship. Listen, Paul, you're not winning a championship this year. The 76ers are already looking at the fat lady singing before they start thinking about winning a title this year. They're not. They're not going to win a title. They have no championship aspirations left for this year. And I'm pulling up the standings for the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're 20-38, like I said. So maybe if they win tonight, they will be 21-38. They are 12th in the Eastern Conference, which means they're not even in the play-in. Not even in the play-in. And they're going nowhere. I'm going to keep saying this. I'm going to sound like a broken record. But they're going nowhere. And there's other reports going around that could the 76ers petition for a medical retirement? Now, for most people who don't understand what a medical retirement in professional sports means, it basically means if the injuries are so bad, and doctors determine that it can't be done, like you can't play anymore, it basically means that you're done. It means you were basically told by doctors you can't play anymore and your career is over. And that would be a shame because in the beginning, Joel Embiid was a really good player. But now, the guy is a shell of himself. And just to read the direct definition, this was actually a quote from Keith Smith, who actually I've spoken to before. He covers the NBA for Spot Track, and he's a contributor to the Front Office show. He was quoted as saying, at this point, an independent doctor selected by the NBA and the NBPA would examine Embiid. If he agreed he could no longer play, his remaining contract would be wiped off the books for the 76ers, which I'll tell you right now, it was officially confirmed tonight by Shams Charania, who confirmed this quote as well, that Josh Harris, the owner of the 76ers, owes Joel Embiid $300 million. $300 million over the next 5 seasons. Think about that. Think about that whole scenario that Josh Harris has to deal with and what he's going to have to do, to fix this situation. The cap is already a mess. You can't do anything about it. And now you have to almost rebuild your team from scratch because you don't have your star. Well, let me take that back. I think Tyrese Maxey is the guy that they really should be building around, even though he's had injuries too. Let me put more perspective behind that point or comment that I think Tyrese Maxey is a really good young player and is a star, and he can score. But he's had his injuries too. And that is a massive problem for the 76ers. That they can't keep their stars healthy now or in the past or in the future. They can't figure out a way to keep everybody healthy. Because for some reason, if they were able to keep even half their players healthy, they might have made a run for a title. They make the playoffs. This is going to be the first time they're not going to have a chance to blow it in the playoffs because they're not going to make the playoffs. But usually they would make the first round or even the second round. And then they would get upset by another team. Or I shouldn't say upset. By that time, they're probably being beaten by a better team. And everyone says, well, just trust the process. Just trust the process. It's all part of the plan. That 7-8 year plan, which, by the way, is over. It's been 7 or 8 years. And how many titles do they have to show for it? How many? I'm waiting to hear this because last time I checked, if I carry the one, oh wait, 0. Yeah, 0 titles. And by the way, if anyone is a 76ers fan, I apologize you're watching, but it's just the honest facts of the matter that the 76ers are just not a good franchise and they're going nowhere. But it's kind of like a circus, or even better yet, it's more like this. It's like a bad version of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I mean, because they just can't stay healthy, and it's horrible. Like, it's so bad that they just can't stay healthy, and they just can't win a title. And they've had so many stars throughout the years. I mean, they had the debacle with Jimmy Butler, who is now in Golden State, and ironically, who they're playing tonight. They've had James Harden, who basically destroyed that franchise and basically was because he didn't want to play. So basically, he would just get so he didn't have to play. And it's awful. It's so bad. The 76ers have had a great history of their franchise. They just don't win anything important. They don't win any titles. Prove to me, somebody out there who's watching right now, make an argument for me and tell me why the 76ers are going to fix this issue. They're going to fix this franchise, and they're going to win a title sometime before I turn old and gray. Because right now, they have a lot of issues they got to get figured out. They're in trouble. And Joel Embiid going down, who is their cornerstone franchise player. Yes, and I kind of have to bleh my words on that one a little, because I don't know if exactly he was a cornerstone franchise player. And people can argue with me all they want, but Nick, he's been there all this time. He's a really good player. He won an MVP. Guys, listen to me. He did not deserve that MVP award. He did not. He absolutely did not. It should have been Jokic. Jokic should have won 4 straight MVPs. It looks kind of ridiculous that Jokic won 3 out of 4 MVPs. Jokic had a really good year. Embiid was out most of that year. And that led to these dopey rules that you have to play a minimum amount of games just to earn the awards at the end of the year. They should call that the Joel Embiid rule, because that's where it all stemmed from. That they had to create the Joel Embiid rules just to be eligible for the NBA MVP award, or Defensive Player of the Year, or NBA Rookie of the Year. It's all because of Embiid. Embiid causes trouble for everybody. If you're just joining us now, just in case you're joining us now, per Shams Charania, Joel Embiid went directly to the 76ers ownership about his knee injury. And apparently there was some disagreement. And eventually they became lockstep that he needs to go shut it down. But it took a while. And Joel Embiid, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Joel Embiid was the smarter guy in this situation, which is hard to believe because the guy has been a jerk for most of his career. And it's just one of those things where the ownership was doing more protection for Joel Embiid than Joel Embiid was doing for himself. But for a change, it looks like Joel Embiid is actually trying to protect his career. Maybe. I don't think he's a good player, to be honest. Like, he's got a lot of talent. There's a difference between talent and stardom. Okay, we got to pull those two apart, because having talent is one thing, and being a star is a whole different level. Look at, and again, I have to, my next couple words I'm about to say, but LeBron James, who I dislike and I don't like at all. I look at it as him as a star. He is a star, for sure. But if you're comparing him to other guys like Joel Embiid or James Harden, those guys haven't proven to be stars. I think James Harden has kind of has improved his image since he's gone to the Clippers. But it's taken him how many different franchises to play for before he finally found a home in Los Angeles with the Clippers? I mean, he had a failed tenure in Philadelphia. He basically had a failed tenure in Houston with the Rockets. I mean, just think about all the stops it finally took for James Harden to get to the Clippers in Los Angeles. And by the way, think of the irony there, because Paul George was there, left there, and is now in Philadelphia. And guess what? They're struggling in Philadelphia. So it's kind of a full circle moment if you think about it, because James Harden was in Philadelphia, went to the Clippers. Paul George was with the Clippers, went to Philadelphia. I mean, it's just like same drama, different places a little bit, if you think about it. But I think James Harden will have much more success with the Clippers. I mean, heck, they're sixth in the Western Conference. And they're very close to the other teams above in the top five. Do I think they're ever going to win a title? Not sure. I think that's thinking a little too heavy, too high. Don't get me wrong. They should have title aspirations. That's a fact. But I don't know if they really have a chance to win. That's a whole different argument that we could have. But at least the Clippers are a more complete team than the 76ers right now, I should say. Because at least the Clippers can keep bodies on the court and healthy. There's been so many injuries with the 76ers that I can't even keep up with who's on the injured list and who's not. And I'm looking it up now to see who's been on the injured list so far in the 24-25 season, because I can't keep up. Yeah, so Andre Drummond was on it at one point. Paul George was on it at one point. Kyle Lowry's on it. I mean, I can't keep up. And look at this. Tyrese Maxey is day to day with a finger injury. So Eric Gordon had a wrist injury, and now he's out till late May. They cannot keep their guys healthy. By the way, Jared McCain, who's one of their young and up-and-coming guys, knee injury, out for the remainder of the season. Okay? This team is a joke, if you ask me. We had a chance to win a title before the season. We had a chance. We're going to go far. We're going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference. First of all, anyone who said that, I want to know what you were smoking, because I don't know if I would have believed you even if they were 100% healthy. I never believed that this team was ever going to make a huge run for a title. If they were 100% healthy, they would have been at the top of the Eastern Conference. That's a fact. But I never believed that they were going to make a huge run. They would have made the playoffs. No doubt. They would have made the playoffs. If Embiid was healthy, Paul George was 100% healthy, Tyrese Maxey was 100% healthy. That's almost like having a big three. And I'm like, oh, Nick, you said big three. Wait, big three. I thought you couldn't do that anymore with the cap situation. You can't. But you had Joel Embiid. You had Tyrese Maxey. You overpaid for Paul George, which anyone who tells me that the 76ers, even 76er fans, if they try to tell me that that wasn't an overpay for Paul George, I might have to ask you for your NBA fandom card. Because I want to know what you're saying. You're telling me that the Paul George contract, which I'll pull up, by the way, because that contract is awful. It's another cap killer. if you ask me. So the current contract that Paul George just signed, which goes all the way till he has a player option for the 27-28 season. It's a 4-year, almost $212 million contract with an average salary of close to $53 million a year. Think about that. You're already paying Joel Embiid $60+ million. And now you lost him for a whole another year. And on top of that, because Paul George is not going to remain healthy. Let's just be real. I'm telling you 100%. He's just not going to stay healthy. You're going to end up paying a shitload for that contract too. So Paul George's cap hit for this year is $49.2 million. Next year, it's almost $52 million. 26-27, it's a little over $54 million. And then the player option, 27-28, is almost $57 million on the cap. Okay? It's a lot of freaking money. I mean, seriously. These guys are not worth this amount of money. And by the way, I want to point out something too, which is incredible. Excuse me. Paul George, at this point of his career, has made $354 million. Okay? And I'll get you the Joel Embiid career numbers just because I'm curious. But Joel Embiid has made $264 million. Incredible. I mean, bravo. Bravo, everybody. These two have figured out how to rob the 76ers blind. And, excuse me. So I'm congested a little bit. But these two guys figured out how to rob the 76ers. And I laugh at it because the owners have complete control over this situation. Josh Harris didn't have to give Joel Embiid a contract extension. He didn't have to. And by the way, anyone who says to me, but Nick, he had to hold on to Joel Embiid. No, you didn't have to do anything. That's the standard argument. If I jump off a bridge, are you going to follow me if I do it? I'm waiting for someone to say, "Oh, if all that money's there, of course I'm going to do it." That's crazy. It's such a ridiculous argument. And now, not that it's going to bankrupt the organization by any means, but now you have to deal with all the
emotional damage
that comes with it. I mean, you're basically sitting $64 million or $65 million with Joel Embiid. The cap hit for Joel Embiid this year, and I have to go back to the contract because I forgot this was an extension on top of it. But the 24-25 season, the cap hit almost $51.5 million. It's 37% of the cap. Think about that. Okay? And then on top of that, it gets worse. $55 million plus in 25-26. So it's just more and more and more. The money goes up. It doesn't go down. I'll never understand this in professional sports, why we backload contracts. Why would you backload a contract knowing that these athletes in any sport, not just the NBA, get worse, not better, as these contracts age? Think about these 10 and 12-year contracts in baseball. Look at the A-Rod contract. The Yankees eventually had to get out of the back end of it, even though they had to pay for it. Look at the Giancarlo Stanton contract with the Yankees, even though it was acquired from Miami. That was like a 13 or 14-year deal. And now he's hurt again, and he's going to start on the injured list with the Yankees this year. And it's going to cost them even more money. Same thing with Joel Embiid. It's going to cost them, it's going to be a very expensive sit for the 76ers. Their title aspirations are done. They're way over the moon. There's no chance, especially for this year. Nothing's happening this year. But they're not winning a title for the next 5 to 6 years. They can't keep their squad together. They can't keep Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. They can't keep stars on the court. It's a real circus. But you know what the 76ers are going to say? We're just going to keep chugging along. We're going to figure it out. Don't worry. Don't worry, 76ers fans. We'll figure it out. Because we are going to tell you again to trust the process. You know what I mean? Because that whole trust the process didn't work before. But you know what? We're going to tell you, don't you worry. We're going to figure it out. Keep buying those tickets. Keep buying those season tickets. Keep spending all that money on concessions. Buy those jerseys. Because you know what? We're the 76ers, and we're going to tell you we're going to win a title soon. I mean, I don't know. And I think Josh Harris is a good owner, by the way. But I don't know what to tell him at this point. I mean, I get it. He owns 3 teams. 76ers being one, the New Jersey Devils, and the Washington Commanders. And by the way, I give him credit. He got the Commanders right. And that franchise is on the way up. Nobody thought that the Commanders were going to be the most valuable of his franchise right now because they're playing the best. They have the best future ahead of them. The 76ers were supposed to be the team that had the best future ahead of them. But right now, the 76ers are falling out of the clouds. They are falling from grace, everybody. And I don't know how you fix this franchise. Do you really want to bring in another star and pay another expensive contract? I wouldn't. I'd try to rebuild and figure it out. And then maybe if Joel Embiid comes back. Because if he has to have another knee reconstructive surgery, that's going to be another year of recovery. If you know what I mean. So, I don't know what you do here. If anybody who's watching right now, if you have any idea what the 76ers should do, drop it in the comments and let's discuss it. Because right now, the 76ers ownership doesn't have a damn clue what they're doing to keep a team on the court. And I just want to check the score and see if they actually held on. Okay, so they actually won tonight. They won 126-119 over the Golden State Warriors. But let's take a look at the box score for a second and see what they did tonight. So they were led by Quentin Grimes, former Knick Quentin Grimes, who had 44 points. But after that, Kelly Oubre Jr. with 20, and Paul George, the third leading scorer of the night, with 17. That's not what you should be getting from a guy who signed a $212 million contract. It's not enough. 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. I mean, it's not enough. This guy's got to put up better numbers. He's supposed to be the leader of this franchise. Oh, and I didn't even see Tyrese Maxey even play tonight. He had 5 points on 2 of 14 shooting. This team doesn't have a prayer. It doesn't. And it's not going to have a prayer for many years to come. There are so many teams better than them in the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at the full conference right now. They're not beating Cleveland. They're not beating the Celtics. Now, if they were healthy, maybe they could beat the Knicks, but I'll leave that one up in the air right now. I don't think they beat the Bucks. I don't think they beat the Pacers. Now, the surprise of the Eastern Conference being the Detroit Pistons at the 6th seed, they could beat Detroit. That's definitely beatable. But that's where it starts, from the 6th seed down. Because 7th seed is Miami. Miami is beatable. Orlando, I would say that one's questionable. Atlanta, and then the Bulls are the 10th seed where the play-in starts. So, technically with that win, they are the 11th seed, and they are 3.5 games out of that 10 seed to make the play-in tournament. But making the play-in tournament is a far cry from what the 76ers were supposed to be. They were supposed to be way better. Way better. And they have nothing to show for their crappy season. They just don't. They got to figure out something. I don't know what they do. But with all that money they've spent, I just don't see how it gets better. And I don't think Josh Harris is going to want to spend more money. He's going to want to have it figured out. Because spending millions upon millions of dollars and having no title to show for it in Philadelphia, that's a problem. It's a major problem. And what's stopping 76er fans from saying, listen, F you. I'm not coming back anymore. I'm not paying that money. I'm not paying those seat licenses or, like I said, the concessions or all that nonsense that they sell in the arenas or the ticket promotions or any of that. I'm not doing it. I just wouldn't. It's a problem. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But this is interesting. I just found a comparison that actually makes a lot of sense. Do you remember when DeMarcus Cousins was in the league and everyone said, oh, he's the next big center? And everyone said he has a lot to prove and he has huge expectations. Well, what happened to DeMarcus Cousins? He got hurt. And his career essentially just fizzled out. I think that's what's happening to Joel Embiid. A lot of expectations. He had an MVP, but his career is fizzling out. And it's fizzling out in a terrible way. And what does he care? He's made $256 million. It's not like he's going to be poor. So if he just went away, it wouldn't be the end of the world. He could do whatever he wants if he ends up either being medically retired or just retiring because his body can't handle it anymore. But with the obscene amount of salaries that exist in the NBA, and again, let me make this clear before everybody in the comments section says to me, but Nick, you're just making another ridiculous comment about obscene salaries. This goes on in every sport. You're right. The salaries are obscene across professional sports. But in the NBA, they make so much money. Even with salary caps, they still make so much money that these guys don't give a shit if they get hurt. Name me one guy who gives a shit that because he's making so much money, oh, I got to get back on the court. I got to get myself back on the court. I got to try. Because they don't. Joel Embiid doesn't care. He doesn't. $256 million in the bank. If he would just walk away, he probably wouldn't care. It's a adios. I made my money. I'm rich. Where's that sound effect for that money? Because that's where I'm at this point. I'm rich. I did it. I don't need anything else. I'm rich. He could go do whatever he wants now. I'm serious. But if I'm getting ready to wrap this up. But as I said, according to Shams, Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers ownership about his knee injury. And now we found out yesterday that he is going to miss the rest of the regular season, even though that was kind of against the 76ers thought process. They just wanted to keep rehabbing the injury, getting back on the court. Now, one last question I will say is what happened if he agreed to get back on the court? He said, all right, Josh Harris and the ownership, I'll rehab the injury and see if I can get back on the court. What happens if he permanently damaged his knee and then he couldn't play anymore? You would have had to pay him the whole contract anyway. So this is a lose-lose situation for the 76ers, for Joel Embiid, for the NBA, because the NBA was behind him a lot too. And the NBA is a what league? A stars league. That's all they care about. They don't care about the fans. They don't care if the fans are able to afford seats or afford concessions. All they care about is what, everybody? The bottom line. Do I have to play it again? That's all they care about. They don't care if you can afford to park. They don't care if you can afford the seats or afford anything. They just don't care. They want stars. And that is it. That's all they want. And when the stars get hurt and they fizzle out, they say, adios, there's the door. We're going to bring the next star in. Okay? Look, they got their wishes when the Mavs traded Luka to L.A. That's going to be their next permanent focus. They're going to put huge marketing dollars. Hopefully, they're hoping and begging and pleading that Luka wants to continue to play in Los Angeles for the Lakers, because that was really not his destination or his choice. But they're going to put all the money and marketing power, and they're going to get together with the Lakers and say, hey, psst, Lakers, do everything you can to keep Luka in Los Angeles. Because right now, Joel Embiid is hurt, and we can't do anything with him anymore. So now, we're going to go focus on Luka, because Joel Embiid is a failure. And everyone's going to watch this back and say, Nick, he's not a failure. He's in the NBA. What are you doing? All right, I don't profess to be a professional in the NBA. I'm going off facts and everything that's being reported. Okay? And Joel Embiid getting hurt again and now having to have to sit out the rest of the rest of this season, and he's probably going to have to sit out a portion of next season. Just call it a wrap. I think they just need to say, hey, let's agree to a buyout and move on and call it a day. Just say, all right, we're done. You're not going to help us. We're not going to help you. We're not going to get anywhere. Let's just call it a day. And that's where I think this stream ends, because we're going to get more news on this again, because Joel Embiid is going to open his fat mouth and say something that's this situation was not controlled properly and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay. But that'll do it for this stream. Thank you for everybody who is watching. Please go check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Please go like and subscribe. It helps our channel grow. Go watch all our different podcasts that are on the ETB Network. It really helps us grow the algorithm. Please help us. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. It really helps. And just go over and check out our ETB Substack, etbnetwork.substack.com, where we put out a lot of great content that's not on YouTube or on our audio podcasting platforms. etbnetwork.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $60 for the year. I promise you it's worth it. Please go check it out. All our hosts that contribute to the ETB network do a lot of extra bonus videos that are behind that paywall. It's not a lot of money. Like I said, it's $5 a month or $60 for the year. I promise you it's worth spending the money. So that's my spiel. And I'll say it for one last time. According to Shams Charania, Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers ownership about his knee injury. And now he's done for the year. And we're going to have to deal with all the drama. And that's about it. I'm Nick Morgeson, co-host of Empty the Bench, here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. And I will talk to you next time.